all your senses are stimulated, or most of your senses are stimulated by the product, because you can touch it, you can feel it, you can smell it, you can sometimes, if there's a nice demo, you can taste it. Services are slightly different, and very much because of the characteristics that we've identified. Those 5 characteristics that we've identified in chapter 1 that differentiates products from services. That's where we started off yesterday. And then we said that, you know what, the marketing mix, in other words, our communication efforts as future marketers, how we are getting the message of our service out to the customers, has to include the original 4 P's of the marketing mix: product, place, promotion, and what's the other one? Just to check and see if everybody's still awake. 4 P's of marketing. Price. Most important one, the one that Red Hanger sale when Edgar was still doing business. Price is important to most of the customers. Price is where we often say higher price. We equate that to better quality, regardless. Again, that's a subject in itself. So those were the original 4 P's of the marketing mix. But because we are not selling products, but we are delivering a service, we added the extra 3, which are people, the processes, and the physical evidence. In the previous 2 chapters, we dealt with the employees as well as the customer, and involving the customer in the service delivery process. Those were two of the 3 additional P's: people and processes. And chapter 10 is about the physical environment, the physical evidence of our service. Up to where we got in the chapter yesterday, we realized that it's rather challenging, because the physical environment has such an extremely important impact on how we will judge how effective the service was delivered and how well we as customers have experienced it. Because that usually leaves you with that usually provides you with that first impression of, is the service good? And it sets sort of the tone of what your experience might be. I shared the example of me driving through an industrial area and factories to get to a restaurant that was located in the old harbor in Hermanus, and I was very conscious of my environment, and I was not exactly sure what to expect. But when I opened the doors of the restaurant and I walked in, and the entire experience was a fantastic one. But I could have just turned around and said, oh my, I'm not going any further, regardless of what people have said about this place. You know what? Yeah, your first impression is almost a lasting impression, and it has to be extremely. It has to be leave a great impact in the mind of the consumer. And the physical environment, the smells, the colors, the textures of the decor that we use, the whole theme in a particular environment, leaves a lasting impression with our customers. But if that's not our first impression, we still have a lot of work to do to convince the consumer who's using our service that, you know what, we're actually okay. You have one opportunity to impress somebody the first time. That's that first time that you entertain that customer. So first impressions, very important. The physical environment to assist us in giving a top-notch first impression is extremely important, because people can see it. It activates, it stimulates their senses immediately. The sense of smell, of sight is immediately activated, and they are probably the 2 most important, or the 2 most dominating senses of the 5 that we have. Right. That's where we left off yesterday, and that's what we covered yesterday. Now, SERVICESCAPEs basically referring to the physical environment in which the interaction between customers and service providers happen, was the brainchild of Booms and Bittner. And then ZEITHAML and Bittner designed a framework to understand the influence of the SERVICESCAPEs on both the customer as well as the service providers' employees. And that's usually based on three components. It's a stimulus organism response theory. Let's go to the next slide, because I think the next slide will, no, the next slide's not going to. The next slide's going to refer to figure 10.1, which is that one. We'll get to figure 10.1 on page 257 in your textbooks just now. But basically, the three components of that framework, of the ZEITHAML-Bittner framework, was that as I said, it's a stimulus organism response framework, those being the three components, where the stimulus refers to the multidimensional environment, where the organisms are the consumers and the employees, and where the responses refer to the behavior of the employees and the customers to the environment. Right. If we go to the diagram or the figure on page 257, remembering that the framework consists of three components, which are our stimulus or stimuli, two, which are the second one? Can you remember from one slide back? Should I refresh you? Organisms. Where's my organisms? Our organisms are right in the center there. It's our employees and the customers and how they react to the environment. The stimuli is the physical environment dimensions. All these things on the right-hand side of the figure. And then how people behave in reaction to the environment, we find on the right-hand side. Those are the three components. The stimuli on the left, in the middle, we have our customers and our employees, who are our organisms, and then the behavior or the response, in other words, how people behave in reaction to the environment, form the right-hand side, which are the responses in this framework, which specifically refers to the stimuli or stimulus, response, and oops, that was one too quick. Which refers to the stimulus, the organisms, and response as the three components of the framework. Let's go into each of these individually. This is quite a nice. I actually should have put this particular figure at the end of this discussion, because it summarizes everything and puts it into a better, in a clearer picture for you. But let's deal with each of those individually. Remember, the first one is the individual behaviors. Oops, I've gone too far now. Nope, I haven't. Right. Individual behaviors could be twofold. They could either be an approach behavior where you feel, because of the physical environment, which is very inviting and stimulating, you feel, you know what? I can stay here the whole weekend. This is actually, I might even stay longer, because this is so, that first impression, that makes the customer want to stay at the place that they have booked. I'm referring to specifically the game lodge in our previous example, the one in the Eastern Cape. Or you can have the avoidance experience. You get there, there are dodgy smells in the air. The air doesn't appear very pure. there are loud noises. It's just not, your first impression is just not a good one. And as a result of that, your individual behavior would be, okay, I've paid for the weekend, I'll stay, but you almost already have decided, regardless of what still needs to happen on during your stay, you're probably not going to return. Or it's so bad that you say, I no. Is there, what's the penalty clause here? Because I'm not staying here, I'm leaving now. I'm not even staying for the rest of the weekend. What's your refund policy? So you have that extreme responses of customers to either be very positive, which your approach would be, and your avoidance, obviously, exactly what it says. I'd much rather not. Please, how can I get out of this? You have your social interactions where the SERVICESCAPE exert a direct influence on the nature and the quality of the customers as well as the employees' interaction. Because let's use two examples, for instance. If you want to go to a cricket match, for instance, at Newlands, because it's the closest venue that we have, that probably most of us would can relate to or know about. Now, Newlands have seats that you can book, and they could be individual seats, or like it would be at any sports stadium, or they have the grass banks. The individual seats are not necessarily going to engage or encourage any social interaction between individuals, because if you've got 4 seats next to each other, unless you, on the day that you arrive there, decide who sits in which particular one of those 4 chairs, you're not necessarily interact with the individual next to you. But then if you book 4 seats, the people on your left and the people on your right, you probably don't know. And you're probably not going to, because it's not an encouraging environment or layout to actually invite you to interact. Your personality might influence that as well. But if you book a seat and say, I'm not going to book a seat, I'm just going to go to the grass banks. I'm going to book a seat on the grass banks where it's first come, first serve, and everybody sits everywhere. It's a more sort of social, interactive environment that's created or that's encouraged with the fact that there's no specific layout of who sits where. Compare that with with booking a seat in the business class on an airline, regardless, British Airways, Emirates, doesn't matter. There, very specifically, the individual who books a seat in that in business class needs peace and quiet, needs personal attention, and is not there to socially interact with the other passengers. They want to just get in the best comfortable comfort possible to their destination, and that's why it's called business class, people. I know some airlines call it first class and economy class, and business class means exactly that. People are there to do business. That's a means of transport. They need to do it in peace and quiet. They want to relax. They maybe even want to prepare their presentation for tomorrow's meeting, whatever. They just be left alone and they want to be spoiled. Simple as that. So it's 2 different environments, interaction and the other one not. Then you have our internal responses, which could be cognitive, emotional, or physiological. We as human beings respond to the stimuli in different ways. We both the employees of the service provider as well as the customers respond to the dimensions in our physical environment, either in a cognitive, emotional, or a physiological way. But these responses in return determine the behavior in the service delivery environment. We've seen that in our illustration. There's the interaction. That's how the employees can respond, and that's how your customers can respond. We're either attracted to an environment because it looks nice and and everything, the ambience and everything is great, layout is fantastic, and we'll look at each of these individual components in the following slides, where the environmental dimensions that we refer to that can impact on your experience as a consumer is the ambient conditions, the spatial layout or the functionality of the layout, and then the signs used, the symbols used, the lack of symbols and signs, and any artifacts that that can complement that. Let's look at the first one. Our ambient, look at that view. I can remember I was on my honeymoon in Mauritius, and I had a similar table like that booked for dinner one evening, and I think it was, if it was a different event, everybody on their honeymoon is in a great spirit, and I mean, everything is beautiful and great, and but at some point we had a few birds which obviously are familiar with the environment, that just basically flew onto the porch and sat on the table and nibbled on all the little crumbs that that you've missed, and it just, well, that's how it is. I mean, some people would be annoyed with a situation like that. I think if it wasn't for, I might have been, I might be now if I go back and I have that similar experience, it might be different. But I think if you look at the complete picture, the atmosphere and the ambience that was created is sort of, okay, that's probably part of it, and you accept it, and you move on. But the things that the characteristics that's included in the ambience is very often smell, sense, and colors, and sounds for that matter, and lighting. For instance, if it's a very dark place, you feel not as depending on the mood, depending on the, on the particular event itself. But usually the smells, the sense, the colors, the sounds, and lighting combined creates that atmosphere. Although we all respond to these characteristics differently. For some people, it's fine. I mean, some people are not sensitive to smells, for that matter. I know that we went to a restaurant, a family restaurant, a number of years ago, and my wife has got quite a active sense of smelling senses are quite pronounced. And she immediately said, "But something smells bad here." I thought, "Okay, right." We just sat down. Maybe it's the people next door, or the table next to us. I don't know. And then I didn't want to know this, but when we confronted one of the staff members, I think it was the waiter, that admitted that they've had problems with rodents, and they suspect it might be a rodent that got stuck somewhere in one of the pipe. I don't want to know that. I haven't even ordered. I haven't even received a menu. So needless to say, we didn't go back to that particular place. But very often, a good smell can have extremely positive effect. If you go past a shop, those candle shops that they have in the shopping malls, there's always a good scent coming from there. Even if you're not feeling great and you walk past there, all of a sudden it uplifts you. You feel so much better. And good smells have that effect on you, as the opposite, obviously, with some bad odors. Colors, colors, sounds definitely play a very important role in our impression that we have about the physical environment in which the service is delivered. I'm very much at the moment, and I think it's a trend with a lot of businesses, very much into those rustic colors. Very popular nowadays in the modern layouts of facilities as well. They complement each other. But as long as those characteristics complement your experience, then it's definitely going to remain. It is definitely going to result in a positive reaction by you, the consumer, to the environment, the physical components of the environment. The two examples I've used there, for instance, is if you look at music that's played in a restaurant. If you have loud music playing in a restaurant, it's probably your it's probably going to be a pub where people probably don't even sit at the table to eat, but they sit at the bar and have the meal. It's quick and gone, and it's lively. It's a specific environment, but it's not an environment that's encouraging for you to stay there for longer. If the music that's played are different, and research have shown that if music is played in a shop, in a mall, for instance, people tend to shop, finish what they've come for, maybe add a few extra items, and go. That's simple. If the music is slower music, more relaxing music, they are more leisurely. The customers, they stay longer, they shop more, and as a result of that, they spend more, which is what you want. So definitely, I don't know. I mean, I've never experienced that because maybe in the previous phase of my life I was like that. I'm not affected by this at the moment because if I go to a shop, and I think that's again where males and females are slightly different, depending again on what the purpose was for the outing. If it was to spend time with family, then people are more relaxed. Nothing can bother them. They stay as long as they want. But mostly, I find at the moment, for me, if I have to buy something that I need, I go straight to the shop that I will more than likely find that product. I buy it and I go home. I don't linger around. I'm not sure. I mean, how are you guys? Gen Zs are supposed to be. Gen Zs are supposed to be individuals who enjoy going to malls and spending time at malls. How would you rate yourselves? How would you categorize yourselves? Do you feel that, are you like that, or are you maybe a different generation, or is it that, all right, that was good, it worked for me at some point, but it's not at the moment? I mean, when you go to the mall, what's your purpose of going there? Is it for the social interaction, spending the whole day there, shopping? Then, okay, right, become tired, let's sit down, have some lunch. How do you as Gen Zs experience the physical environment? How do you plan these outings, or is it just to go out and shop? Anybody? Kia, how do you do this? Or don't you go to the mall? Anybody else?
So
Yes.
if I were to go to the mall, when I was a bit younger, I would go and see friends there for the whole day, and go and do like just hang around there. But I mean, now I would probably just go there because I need to go to a whole bunch of shops, and that center has all those shops in one place.
Well, the most convenient layout that actually provides you with access to all the shops that you need to visit. Interesting fact. I mean, I think we discussed it in an earlier class this morning with the. I'm not sure if you guys know about it or heard about it, but Pick n Pay has just bought all the Click shops. So Clicks are becoming the pharmaceutical department of Pick n Pay nowadays. I'm pretty sure it's not going to initially. There are some Pick n Pays who already have pharmaceutical section, but they are limited. There are not too many of them in the country. And I'm also sure that all the Click shops are not necessarily going to close their doors now. They are just going to have a change in signage and stuff like that, because they are now like Pick and Pay clothing and Pick and Pay liquor are all part of the Pick and Pay shopping experience. Clicks will now just become your pharmacy to go to, or additional a pharmacy that a lot people would go to Clicks anyway. I know that currently the majority of the malls that I visit, Clicks, I find the Clicks very close to a Pick and Pay as an anchor tenant, maybe in a shopping mall, and so it made sense. I think it made the business sense that they've taken that step now. But it's interesting. I would like to see what impact that has on the number of people who now are doing who probably have shopped at Woolies or Checkers for that matter, and then also visited the Clicks. If those people are now, because they get their prescriptions from the Clicks pharmacies, and that's probably those functions and services are all going to continue. If they are now going to maybe convert to doing their shopping that they would have done at a different retail store at Pick and Pay as well, maybe this is part of the strategy of doing this. But no, just very interesting. Good move from Pick and Pay, very strategic move. I'd like to see what the outcome is, but it's obviously too early for us to determine that. Yeah, I'm pretty much as well. I think earlier in my life, I could spend the whole day with family and friends in the mall. And I think I probably did spend the whole day at more than one occasion in the mall. Probably straight after breakfast, all the way through to supper, but those things don't happen anymore. No, I think phase of my life I'm in and out there because I have a specific purpose to be there and then move on. But again, even more so in a case like that, your experience still needs to be a great one, and the physical environment. I'm not going to, and I've shared it with the group yesterday as well. Convenience is most important for me at the moment, more than anything else. And I would think a lot of people, nobody likes to queue. Nobody wants to battle to find parking. So you're going to go to the place that you know you always find parking, or where the layout of the parking areas is such that it complements your whole experience or the whole outing. And similarly with the layout of the shops. I know I often get very frustrated when they change the layout of a shop, especially when you just become used to it. I had an experience a number of years ago with a blind friend of mine who came to the gym regularly, same time, qualified psychologist, but she was blind. And you wouldn't notice it. You get blind people who are born blind, and obviously you can see that you can see in their eyes that they are. And then you have people who, if you didn't know any different, you wouldn't know that they were blind. And she was one of those. How she negated herself through the gym, never bumping herself in. They know exactly. I mean, she's figured it out. She knows exactly which apparatus she's going to use, and she just moved from one to the. And then we got new equipment, and we moved the equipment around. It was. I can now imagine how frustrating it was for her, because all of a sudden she had to teach herself the whole new pattern and layout of the facility, because we've changed the order in we've changed the placements and the order in which the apparatus was laid out. And I think sometimes, I know I'm not going to all of a sudden change to a new retail shop because that happened. But at that point, it's an annoyance. And I know that people adjust very quickly. Consumers adjust very quickly to these kind of changes. I think the businesses out there can be better at informing the customers about possible changes that's going to happen, motivating why the changes have to happen, and then people are knowledgeable and informed, and they will take those changes in their stride, rather than becoming annoyed because right, yesterday I was here and it was like this, and now it's different. I sometimes get frustrated, but anyway, that's just it becomes it becomes a very individual experience. Another example that I've used there is, for instance, where, let's say, for instance, you're attending a conference where there's a keynote speaker. It's in the summer, it's hot, the aircon's not working, you're becoming very irritable and uncomfortable. And if somebody now asks you to evaluate the speaker, were they good, were they bad, whatever, how was the event and everything, based on how you feel at that point, very uncomfortable and very irritable, you will have a different evaluation of how good the speaker was or how good the whole seminar, workshop, or event was, because of the physical environment not complementing your experience. Right. Well, let's give it a go for another 10 minutes. I think we'll finish the chapter and then we'll leave it again. We'll leave the case study for tomorrow. I'm going to add a few extra case studies, and I'm also going to ask you to maybe share some additional case studies with me, personal experiences, specifically where an environment where you were sold on a particular environment based on the attributes that you saw, maybe during a demonstration, on images that were on their webpage. You made your choices based on that. It looked fantastic. You got there. It was exactly the opposite. Tomorrow we can share a positive and negative experience where specifically the physical environment, the layout, the music, the noises and everything, the smells, how that have worked out for us or not. The spatial layout and the functionality of the specific venue is also important. Imagine receiving a massage in an environment like that. You immediately feel relaxed. I mean, your masseuse doesn't even have to tell you, relax. You're here to, no, you're relaxed already. If that was a dodgy environment where there were no natural light, it was a small room, darker, smaller room, the experience would have been different. But let's delve into the specific components of spatial layout as well as functionality. The image I've got on the screen, I'm going to use as a starting point. That's from the movie The Founder, about McDonald's, the McDonald's franchise. And when the McDonald's brothers who started McDonald's, not Ray Kroc, who franchised McDonald's and claims to be the founder, the McDonald's brothers who, sorry, I took a sip of water, had this irritation in my throat the whole morning. They decided on a speedy delivery service. They said, well, people shouldn't queue. You shouldn't wait for 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes for your food. And that's where the whole McDonald's business originated. They decided that if they improved the layout of their kitchen, they can be more efficient and they can actually complete an order in the minimum time available. And people knew they didn't have to queue because it was, okay, right, you ordered something, cheeseburger and fries now, okay, right, sir, there we go, there's your cheeseburger and fries. Okay, there I've jumped to the next screen. And how it actually was done, for those who haven't seen the movie, they went to a tennis court. That's the image. And they took some chalk that teachers use on blackboards, and they drew on the tennis court the layout, and they tried it with the staff members, as you can see in the image. And then obviously they have to change it regularly, hence the fact that they use chalk. But the spatial layout of any environment, of any business, is designed in such a way that it actually supports the experience of both the employees and the customers. If you as an employer for the service provider, representing the service provider, can work more efficiently because the environment layout allows you to, you are going to deliver a better service. If you don't have to rush from the one end of the bar to the other end of the bar to get a particular item that is used regularly, rather than having that particular item available at both ends of the bar and in the middle, you are going to be more efficient. If similarly, the experience that the customer would then have, the customer would, right, sure, there's your drink, or there's your food. Or the spatial layout is extremely important, and that specifically refers to how the equipment and furnishings, everything in a particular environment is arranged to enhance your experience for you as customer, but also for the service delivery employees to deliver the service. If they are battling to deliver the service, then you are probably going to battle to receive the service in the manner that you expected. A very condensed working environment, shop layout, for instance, where they've put in an extra aisle of products, and the space between the shelves and the different aisles are not conducive for you for proper flow of business through them. People are going to negatively be affected by that. The functionality refers to specifically the ability of these items to help the customer and employee accomplish their goals. For you to experience a top-class service as customer, and for the employee of the service provider to provide a more efficient service. Functionality and spatial layout has become especially important for self-help environments. That is very popular nowadays, and that we've dealt with in a previous chapter. If there's no cover at an ATM, you're not going to use that ATM during bad weather conditions. For instance, that's just a physical component that needs to be present for you to actually experience the service properly. You're probably going to go elsewhere, but it's inconvenience, and you don't want to offer the self-help option to your customers, and then that becomes an inconvenience to them because of the physical attributes that's not complementing their experience. Right. Let's go to the final one. Our signs, our symbols, and our artifacts. Now, well, I think that sign is self-explanatory, but when signs are used, they can either be used explicitly or implicitly. In other words, an explicit signs outside on the building, visible signs, the image on the screen. That's what you see at the airport. It's inside, it's outside the building. You know where the departures are. You know where you have to drop your luggage. You know where the boarding section is. That is very important, especially, well, I have to admit, that's not the reason why I chose airports or airports signs as an image. But I can remember the first time that I went to an international airport outside of our countries. Firstly, especially if it's a country like that where English is not the national language, it can be difficult, and that's why very often, importantly, to enhance the experience is to use not just the wording but also specific symbols. You know by now that using the male and the female symbols indicate to you where the cloakrooms are for the different genders. If it wasn't for symbols like that, I probably would never have found them in France, for instance, because I can't speak French. So that basically symbols and signage is extremely important for communicating to customers where they have to go to experience the service in the manner that they expect to that service to be performed. Right. The last section of this chapter deals with the competitive advantage. If you use all of these components that we have addressed now, yesterday, but especially today, you'll find that it can differentiate a one service organization from another. If you follow all these guidelines and you apply all these guidelines, the chances that you will be differentiated from your competitors because you provide a better service, or the impression from the customers are that they will receive a better service from a particular company, is so much greater, and it can give your business a competitive advantage without a doubt, especially in businesses that are in the same industry and that offer similar services with very few differentiating components. If it's a similar service, small things like we've addressed today are going to make a great difference to give you that competitive advantage over your rivals in a particular industry. Right. So what do management have to do? Management have to understand the customers' expectations, how they evaluate the physical environment, and why it's important to ensure that our physical environment, the smells, the sounds, the noises, the colors, the layout, how that positively contributes to the experience of the customers, and how that would impact on how they evaluate this our service, and if they will return or not, is obviously the greatest lesson for management to remember. Right. We're done for today. We're done for today. The case study is on the slides, and the slides are on Canvas already. Read through the case study. We're going to discuss the questions at the end of the chapter tomorrow. Not too many questions, not a very long case study. But then please, I encourage you also, everybody, give me a good and a bad experience tomorrow. Share a good and a bad experience with the physical environment, where the SERVICESCAPE, the SERVICESCAPE had an impact on your experience, to make it positive or negative. I would love to hear, because we collectively learn from each other in that regard. Have anybody got any questions at this point?
No, thank you, sir.
I'm pretty sure you're rushing off to have lunch. I'm very sorry to go into your lunchtime, but thanks very much for being part of this. Mali and everybody else, yeah, Jessica, the whole lot of you, thanks very much. I will close the session here. I will stop the recording, and I'll